Hey guys, good morning. I've been promising y'all a story, and I was thinking about it the other day. I was looking at a magazine, and it brought back a memory of years ago. You know, I worked for the sheriff's department, and I was never home. And my boys, or my girls too, were always kind of growing up without dad being there. So I left the sheriff's department and I was offered a job at the school. And that made it so much better because I could be home with the kids, you know, holidays, summers and stuff. And Lester at this time was probably about 10, maybe 12. Daniel was 7 or 8, you know, something like that. And we hadn't been able to like go camping or hunting or fishing or trapping or anything, stuff that I grew up doing. And I wanted them to experience these things with their dad. And so I did. I left the sheriff's department and I went to work for the school. And I remember reading and looking at a magazine, and I seen these ladies with these beautiful mink coats, chinchilla coats also, and other kinds of furs, but those are the two most prominent. And I was reading where a lot of these pelts, that's the skins, you know, the furs, they're like raised on farms, you know, actual farms that they raise these animals. They feed them the high quality food so they develop good. Their furs are prime, you know what I'm saying? Thick fur, prime, and they make lots of money off these. Kind of sad in a way because, you know, you think about it, I don't know how many babies a chinchilla has or a mink, either one, but they take those babies and they raise them, and then they get to a certain primeness, I guess you call it primeness, of their fur, and they're pelted out. In other words, they're skinned. They skin them. And I thought that's fascinating. At the same time, I kind of soft-hearted. I might not want to do that. At the same time, it was these people made lots of money. And I thought, well, you know, I could do that. I could become a fur farmer, you know, me and my boys, and we could probably get rich. And I wouldn't have to go to school at all. I'd just be a fur farmer. Sounds good, don't it? It sounds good. Other people are doing it. Problem was, I don't know nothing about mink, raising a mink. I guess I could pelt one out. Or chinchillas. I was reading somewhere where chinchillas have to have a special environment, like maybe even air conditioning. But sometimes we didn't have air conditioning. We had attic fan. Can chinchillas make it on an attic fan? I don't know. But my mind began to think outside the box, and that's the title, I think, of my story, is thinking outside the box. I've told other people this story, and some of them just kind of had that strange look on them, like Papa's kind of fixing to go off the deep end here. You know, I don't know. It made sense to me thinking outside the box like I was. And I've done in the past. I've had to think outside the box. When with the sheriff's department, sometimes you got to think like those criminals, you know, like if I did this, then what would I want to do now? You know, you can start, got to think like they think. And it works out sometimes. Anyway, so I'm thinking outside the box. And I'm being a realist. I think it's the right word. Heidi, is that a right word, a realist? I know I don't know anything about mink. I know I don't know nothing about chinchillas. I admit that. That's the first thing you've got to do if you're going to go in business for yourself. You better know what you're doing. I didn't. But even though I didn't know anything about chinchillas and mink, I know a lot about raccoons. Outside the box, I could raise a raccoon. I could raise a bunch of raccoons. My boys at these ages, they think everything Dad says is probably right. They learned better as they grew up. At the time, though, Daniel was kind of, at the time, was kind of a follower. He just kind of followed along whatever Lester and I were doing. And Lester would listen to the plan. And I could see he was thinking outside the box too. Outside that box. Dan didn't know where the box was. He just 7, 8 years old, you know, something like that. He didn't know where the box was or what was in the box. He didn't know. But Lester was thinking about it. Our first plan of action is get us some raccoons. Now, there's probably a lot more things we should have thought about. We should have thought maybe like proper housing for them. We knew there was a market for them, and I explained that to you real quick. We trapped some in the winter months. When the winter months is when the furs are more prime, you know, they're thicker and they look better. And so we knew that's when we would have to do the pelting, you know, skin them out. Also, on raccoons, there was a place in Cleveland. I don't think they're there no longer. There are several places you sell the skins, the pelts. You got to pelt them out right. You can't have, you got to be unique with it. You got to be neat. And a nice raccoon pelt, oh, it'd bring you 15, 20 bucks maybe. The meat, you can sell the meat. People eat raccoons, especially in this part of the country. And they pay, there's a place in Cleveland that would pay so much per pound for a raccoon that had been clean, you know, dressed and clean, and cut his head off naturally when you cleaned him, and just the 4 legs, the meat, the body, and legs. But you had to leave 1 foot attached, because someone with no scruples, like I have, no scruples. All right, we've got scruples, baby. You and I, and Kippy, we got scruples. With no scruples, they'd try to sell probably a house cat at some point. Sell it as a raccoon. And whether they bought it and then tried to resell it, I don't know, but there was that rule, big sign. Raccoon had to have 1 foot attached, because they would look. It didn't have that raccoon foot on him, and you couldn't sew another foot on an animal. It had to be his foot. Then they would pay you so much per pound for this meat. And they would turn around and resell it to people that like to eat raccoon. Talking about raccoons for a second, my dad liked raccoons. He raised, you know, poor folks. He raised on raccoons, squirrels, rabbits. And my dad had a way. I never really got the taste that much for raccoon. The rabbits and squirrels, oh, I could eat them all day. Fry them, ooh, yeah. Some cream potatoes and gravy, fried rabbit, fried squirrel, and a biscuit. You talk about downtown now. That's 5-star there. That's 5-star. And yeah, I can taste it now. But my dad would take a raccoon, and an older one, he'd skin it and clean it up. He would boil it first, put it in a pot of water and boil it. And then when it got boiled, then he would take it and barbecue it, put it in the oven, because that boiling would make it tender. A young raccoon, he just cleaned it real good and put barbecue sauce on him in the oven, he went. And like I say, I never developed that much of a taste for raccoon. I could eat it and did, but my dad loved them. But anyway, back to our story, back out of the box. I'm thinking, with these prices in my mind, if we had enough raccoons, Lester and I and Daniel, well, Daniel would grow into the business. Lester was ready to start the business, because he's thinking outside the box. But we discussed it, and he was all for it. We would capture us some raccoons, and we would breed these raccoons. And I don't know, we didn't research far enough. Does a raccoon have one mate, like does a daddy raccoon only have a wife raccoon? Or does that daddy raccoon, like Moses or Billy or Duke out there, he has a bunch of wives? Well, I didn't know. We didn't research that much yet. First thing to do is catch them. They would figure it out. So we took traps, and we know how to trap. And we went back, we tracked around the ponds and river places. We found places that raccoons were coming at night. They mainly come at night. And we'd set traps. With just in a few days now, we captured, I think it was like 16 raccoons just in a few days. A couple a night, 2 or 3 a night. And we bring them home and put them in these cages. This big, huge cage, big cage, nice cage. Raccoons can eat dog food. They love dog food and thrive on it. So they had fresh water and plenty of dog food in there. All we got to do is just keep dumping raccoons in there. We get enough of them, then we'll build real nice cages for all of them. That was our plan. The last night we trapped, because our cage was about full, we caught this humongous king of the jungle raccoon. This dude looked like a bear. Oh, he was big. And I'm thinking, and he was luxurious. That's the right word, Heidi? Luxurious. His fur. Woo. And I'm thinking, you know, if he can have more than one wife, this is the guy we're going to use. This is going to be our guy. We bring that big guy home and we put him in that cage, and all the other raccoons are back in the corner like this. All the boy raccoons, all the little girl raccoons going, woo, woo. You know how girls do. You know how they do. We was set. We had our start in the raccoon business. We would be rich within no time. And I'm not really thinking ahead. Just think about this. If that raccoon, I think they have about 4 babies, roughly. Let's say we got $20 for that per hide out of that family. That's only $80. And then let's just say we got $10 a piece for the four we butcher. That's 4. That's $120. You see, we're not thinking far enough out of the box. That's $120 in a year for that raccoon mama. What's she gonna do for us? And we gotta feed her, take care of her. It's gonna take lots of raccoons for us to make a living being raccoon farmers. It has kind of a ring to it, don't it? Raccoon farmer. Gene Morrow, raccoon farmer. Lester Morrow, raccoon farmer. We would probably wear raccoon jackets, raccoon caps, like Daniel Boone, David Crocker. I can see us now going into the restaurant to eat with our raccoon caps on. Because we would have to probably eat out, you know, being fancy. Anyway, regardless, We didn't think that far, but the next morning we went out, the next morning, to admire our handiwork. Every raccoon was gone, except that big one. He had chewed a hole in the wall. And every raccoon that went out, he was still chewing. He was fixing to get out himself. Our future as raccoon farmers, furriers, what we call ourselves, furriers, I'm not for sure, was over. It vanished overnight. It went through a hole. Here we're thinking out of a box, it went through a hole, a circle. We're thinking about a square box, it's thinking about a circle. Life has that little twist to it sometimes. Lester was devastated. I was beyond devastation. Daniel, he's a little kid, he's ready to go play with marbles. Anyway, that was our future as furriers, as I like to call ourselves. It went out the window, out the hole. So later on, when I talk to people and being serious with them, tell them about my plans, and I always got those faraway looks, and and I think at some point somebody reminded me how much you can only make out of one raccoon, fur and meat. It took a lot of raccoons. A lot of raccoons. Anyway, I just want y'all to know that story. It's that didn't stop us from trapping. Thinking out of the box again. Lester and I, we thought out of the box again. And Dan did too. Dan's growing up enough to know you got to think out of the box, even though he's younger than he was. So there's another story I'll tell y'all later on. I'm not going to get into it today. It's I think G maybe thought about a divorce out of it. Get me away from her kids. I'll tell you that to you later. I hope y'all enjoyed this story. It's true. Think out of the box, folks. Think out of the box. I love you guys.